Good evening, everyone. Call the council meeting for August the 22nd to order. This meeting is being held in person, and it can also be viewed on local cable channel 1303 or on the internet by accessing bucksportmaine.gov and selecting agendas and minutes and choosing this meeting and clicking on the video button next to the meeting. Questions or comments may be submitted during the meeting by emailing slassard@bucksportmaine.gov or during the meeting by calling 307-8030. I will, as I customarily do, take this opportunity to remind you this is a great time to make sure your mobile devices are on silent or whatever so they don't ring during the meeting. Thank you. George, roll call, please.
Councilor Mark Eastman.
Here.
Councilor Paul Gobbins.
Here.
Councilor Tracy Hare.
Here.
Mayor Paul Bissonnette.
Here.
Councilor Dan Ormsby.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Steve Bishop.
Here.
Councilor Ed Rankin.
Here.
George. Next is consider minutes of previous meetings. We have our minutes from the August 8th meeting. I will assume everyone's had a chance to review.
Motion to approve. Second.
Seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? We have two items of correspondence to review. The first is a Corona police call from August the 3rd, and we have the Down East Transportation Ridership Report for July. Any questions on those? Next, I'm not seeing any ordinances to consider or introduce this evening. So for discussion items, we have several. I just want to note before we get into it that we, on the agenda that was sent out to us earlier in the week, the library report is not on there. On the agenda that everybody here has this evening, it is. And it will be the fourth of the four items. The first is dams owned by Bucksport Mill LLC, Five-Town Dam Committee update.
I really don't have anything to tell you since our last meeting, which is Bucksport Mill LLC / AIM, now AIM Development USA LLC, which is a name change, but did not file the required requested paperwork to the Department of Environmental Protection in regard to the petition to abandon the dams. And so as of August 11th, those petitions are defunct. When or if Bucksport Mill, AIM choose to start that process again, it's a brand new process. They have to do all notifications again, and DEP has the list of information that we have requested that they include with that process in addition to what they had already asked for before. So we have another meeting of the Five-Town Dam Committee next Tuesday afternoon. The 5 communities that are represented plus the 2 lake associations, and we'll keep you posted if anything occurs in the interim between now and our next meeting. But as of right now, we are collecting information, economic, environmental, as well as doing outreach to other entities that have interests in these Great Pine Mountain Conservation Trust, JERA, Maine Water, all of those entities. So this is a work in progress, taking a lot of time, but it is right now not active, and we are facing no 60-day clock at the moment for holding meetings.
Perfect. Good. Questions? All right, thank you. Next is a request from the Historical Society. Just to provide some context, the Historical Society sent us correspondence right before the last meeting, and as we have discussed multiple times, there is the Historical Society has looked at a proposal or plans to expand their building, etc., that could include a daylight basement, and specifically what Mr. Bagley and the Historical Society, I believe, are going to be speaking about, without putting words in your mouth, are just either taking the council taking further action or putting together a committee to take a look at that.
correct. First of all, thank you for putting us on the agenda. And also, Chief Denning sends his regrets. He wanted very much to attend this meeting. He had a prior commitment that he couldn't get out of. But he wanted me to convey to you that he is very supportive of the proposal that we submitted last fall to elevate the museum building on a full basement street level, and the basement level would be a display of the antique firefighting equipment. This is our 60th anniversary. We appreciate the council recognition of that, and I'd say we're having a very successful year. Good news, this year we've added 12 new members. Even better, several of them have not a lick of gray hair, which is good news. We also have had quite a diverse population visiting the museum. As of today, we have had, aside from numerous visitors, not only from Bucksport, but other main town and cities, visitors from 32 states in the District of Columbia and 3 foreign countries, Canada, England, and Finland. We also, and I'm very happy with this, have started to connect in with the cruise lines that come into Bucksport. And normally they come at times we're not open. But a couple of weeks ago, just at 4 o'clock as we were locking up, Rich came with a group off a cruise ship that had arrived early and wanted to know if we could give them, they wanted to tour the museum. Chris Johnson volunteered and he gave them a tour. They went back to the ship, rave reviews over the museum. So the next day when I was working there with Val, several of them came in. One lady said, well, the rest went to Bangor, but what is there to see in Bangor? I want to see this museum everyone was raving about at dinner last night. And she and her husband spent considerable time there. And when she left, she said, I'm going to be sending you a check for the museum. So we keep checking the mail and hope that happens. Later that afternoon, the historian from the ship, and every ship on the American Cruise Line has a historian, he came in and I was giving him a tour. And he wanted to videotape the narwhal on Jonathan Buck's transom. And when we got to the old tool shed and I was showing him the 1914 pump vacuum cleaner, and he was trying it out and he looked at me and he said, he had just come back from Bangor. He said, your museum is so much nicer than Bangor's. And I was taken aback and I said, why would you say that? He said, well, you let us touch stuff. He said, at their museum, you can't touch anything. I said, well, we're not professionals and we're very hands-on. Glad you enjoyed it. And he asked about future cruises coming in. And I told him, I gave him my email and I said, when you are coming, and if you have a group that wants a private tour, send me an email and we will open up and give tours. One of the things that you may not be aware of, you know that we're open Wednesday to Saturday, July and August 1 to 4, but we have done private tours. About 3 years ago, I gave a private tour in September to a group from the senior center. Then 2 years ago in June, when they had the Pride Festival, we opened the museum then. Last October, Maine Craft Week, early October, we had the museum open and we did craft demonstrations on corn husk doll making. And Bill Fretz did a presentation on silver making like Paul Revere used to do. And there was a lot of interest in that. And then this June, before we opened, DAR wanted a private tour, and we did accommodate them. Let me talk a little bit about what we can and cannot do. What we can do, particularly with new members, is give consideration to expanding our hours. whether it be adding another day or doing something in September, and special tours, and I would invite any of you that want a tour, let me know, be glad to do it. What we cannot do, first of all, we're not Castine and we're not Bar Harbor. We cannot hire professional staff. For 60 years, it has been volunteers, and I predict for the next 60 it'll be volunteers as well. The other thing that we cannot do, and that's the most important, we cannot adequately preserve that antique railroad building and the legacy of Bucksport that is stored in it due to the ravages of nature. Nor can Chief Denning adequately preserve the wonderful antique firefighting equipment that the town of Bucksport has, where it is presently stored. And that is why we came with a proposal to move the museum on a proper foundation, utilize the basement for a display that could be on display year-round of the antique firefighting equipment. And I submit that in addition to the visitors we're already attracting, things like antique firefighting equipment would get people to turn left at the bridge, particularly people with young children who are fascinated with items like that. So what we have come to you for is to ask not for an ongoing financial obligation to the Historical Society, but to step up and say, the condition has gone on far too long, it's not getting any better, and the sign coming into Bucksport mentions the rich heritage. The rich heritage is in that building. And I'm asking the town leaders to take the step and look at preserving the train depot and the contents therein and the firefighting equipment. Thank you. Any questions?
Has anyone pursued, are there any grants for
Yes, we did
Historical
pursue a
Society?
grant and we're not successful.
No.
No.
Was that state or federal?
No, that was the Penobscot Estuary Grant. What was the, Penobscot Estuary?
Trust, it's the Greenfield Trust.
Yes, yes. And we pursued it for that project as well as for the Mill Museum project. Neither was funded. Any other questions?
I would just like to add a comment, and obviously I'm old, and I've been with the museum for 30 years. And I have to say that the town doesn't seem to promote the museum, but is more inclined to say, we really want something that's going to bring in tax money. If the town were proud of our museum and promoted it, it would make a great deal of difference. Every town in Maine that has a museum, and there aren't many, has promoted their museum. I don't understand the lack of that in this community. And as far as replacing the museum with something like a Mexican restaurant or whatever, you're not filling the MTC's storefronts here on Main Street. And you've had 3 lots that you spent over $300,000 to offer and then gave it away for $1. And it's still not producing anything. So why is there such a hurry to get rid of the museum on Main Street? I'm confused. I really wish that you would make it your goal to promote our facility. And any of us are more than ready to give private tours. And we've approached the school system a number of times. And when we have had children in of young ages up through middle school, they've been thrilled with the things we have in there. I really wish you'd take a tour sometime through.
What are the
and
new
see what we
hours
have.
with the new members you have? What are the new hours?
We haven't, we just got the new members on board, and it takes time for them to settle in and feel that not all members want to volunteer to be a docent at the museum. But I have in the back of my mind one new, younger member that I think might fit the bill. So we would be looking at next year at the earliest.
So are there new hours now or no?
No, the
No.
hours are still from Wednesday through Saturday,
Okay,
1 to 4.
okay.
And how will this change when the papermaking museum opens?
Pardon?
How will it change when the papermaking museum opens?
I don't think that's going to affect the operation of our museum.
It's so different for
Yeah,
totally
Yeah,
separate.
that will be, we're not
But-
staffing the paper mill museum.
But they're coming from the Historical Society.
They're under the Historical Society umbrella, yes. But there is a very active working group and a very active group of volunteers working on the building now. Last Tuesday, they had the lunch basket hanging and 2 TV stations covered it, and there was a good turnout.
Good.
And the idea is in that main room when you enter, from the beams, they're hanging the lunch pails and baskets of mill workers with their names on them and the dates of their service. And it's really a neat idea. But again, we're still pursuing the funding necessary to get that really up and running.
Have you considered, I wonder, with the volunteers that you're trying to engaging somebody to help with grant funding as well? Because I like the idea of moving it. I want to be honest with the council. I like the idea of preserving it. I like the idea of moving it. I think we have some climate impact to consider. And I think that there's potentially some grant opportunities that if you had somebody come in and help you connect with grant funding, it's possible that you could.
Are you volunteering?
Well, I'm volunteering to help you find someone, but it's a possibility that you could get grant-funded staffing positions and interns from the university who are in history majors and things like that.
Isn't there a process for a lot of nonprofits to do a strategic plan to determine a path forward?
Not small ones, because those are expensive. Those are like $15,000.
Well, I think we did one with Main Street, Bucksport at one point.
Right, but it's not common.
Okay.
Not as common for small. What's your budget? What's the budget for the Historical Society?
I have no idea.
Well, who wants to speak on a budget?
I mean, it's ideal.
Right.
Our budget, our budget consists of paying our utility bills, the water and electric bills.
Yeah.
And we do have some, for example, several years ago, found rolled up in a corner there was a 1818 handwritten copy of the Declaration of Independence. Very valuable. And we did take it and have it properly framed. And we have other objects. We have the one as a matter of fact, I called the Maine State Museum today to talk to their conservator. She wasn't in, and hopefully she'll call me back. I'm very concerned about Admiral Perry's personal flag that he flew on the Roosevelt. His daughter presented that many years ago to the Bucksport Historical Society. We have it folded up in a case, but that is not the proper way to store that. And I'm trying to talk to her to say, please advise us what we need to do. Who do we see about getting it properly framed, and then come up with the money for that. So we're trying to preserve as much as we can, but the moisture problem continues. You know, in the storm surge this winter with the walkway, I mean, it's hard to wrap my mind around it, but climate scientists say this is nothing compared to what is coming years ahead. And God forbid there was a strong enough storm surge that it ever reached that museum.
Yeah, we were at the resilience meeting the other day, and
Yeah.
they showed the prediction.
Yeah,
and it does
it's
encroach
scary.
on 2 areas in, I think, what is it, a 50-year time frame.
Right.
Yeah.
I may not have that exact, so don't quote me
Right.
on that, but that is at risk of
Right.
weather-related tide, not tied without an event.
Right.
I don't know how to explain
Yeah.
that intelligently.
Yeah,
Don's
sure.
in the audience, he might remember the language, but it was predicted that sea level rise, not so much of an impact on that particular location.
And
but
our income is
storm surge.
our annual dues, which are $10, and whatever our visitors put in the donation box. And that's why I particularly like having the cruise ship visitors, because they tend to be very generous.
Gary, we've gotten grants before,
Well, yes, we did.
and you should mention that. It sounds
Well, the
almost
town,
like-
I'm sure Sue remembers this. I forget the year, but several years ago, there was weather damage to the roof of the museum, and we had to have the roof reshingled. And we wrote a grant, and I think it was $8,000, community development. We got the grant. I had left to go back to Vegas for the winter. They were doing the work, and when they got the old shingles off, they discovered there was problems underneath that we had not been aware of, and we didn't have the money. And the town graciously stepped in and gave us the extra money to fix the, yes.
Can you remind me, sir, how much that renovation was?
To move
The
it up,
project.
the project, to get it up on
Essentially, what you're asking the town to commit to.
around 250,000.
Okay. But the hours aren't changing.
And it
So, so essentially,
Well, no,
To-
I said it's something, now that we have new members, that we want to take a look at.
right. I love the idea. I truly do. I love the idea of the fire trucks. I'm a cop, but I like fire trucks. Everyone
Yeah,
likes a
yeah.
fireman. And I think showing those, and you talk about being, that will get people to turn, right? But if it's not open, how are they gonna see it?
My, Larry,
Did-
my
if that
understanding,
makes
the
sense.
daylight basement is going to be glass or plexiglass or
We have 2 overhead doors that are completely glass.
complete glass. So those would be year-round display.
Without getting into the logistics of this right now, can we see what's available for grant opportunities or resources to help feed this machine or whatever process takes place? Can we see what's available for options?
I mean, I'll say it again, I mean, if we put something on Main Street that isn't open 6, 7, 8 months of a year, I don't think that should be thought through.
Right,
I think, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yep, go ahead.
But I think where we are on this, and this is where we are, we're kind of at a standstill, and I hate to use that word, but I'm going to because it is what it is. The Historical Society has approached us a number of times now and said, here's what we would like to do, and if you'll remember, we asked them to come with a proposal. They came with a proposal on that, and for very, very good reasons, I think that this council needs to be mindful of, that have just come up this evening. We've been a little hesitant to commit to something like that. At the same time, what hasn't changed is the fact that we were talking pre-COVID about the fact that there are things in the artifacts in the Historical Society that their condition is not good, or getting worse and worse by the year. We've talked about the location, we've talked about the hours, we've talked about a lot of those things. I am not normally a person that says, let's send this to a committee and figure out, and make this work. But I think honestly, in this case, that's where we are. I think as a group, we need to have a conversation about, as we move forward, if we're gonna talk about grant writing, if we're gonna talk about the location, improvements to the present location or doing something different, if we're going to have a productive conversation about hours, and more importantly, a conversation about the preservation of what's there, I think we really need to sit down and talk this out and decide what those priorities are, and then bring something that this committee, that a committee like this has agreed upon back to this council, that is more of a mutual effort than what's happened so far. I'll even go so far as to say, and I think I said it the last time we talked about this, this is one of those issues that's been kicked down the road a
Oh,
little
yes.
bit, and I think that has to stop, and it should stop now, so, again, I know you're all volunteering in the Historical Society, we all are doing work, you know, we have committees that we're part of, but I really do think that it's time that we talk about this. If for no other reason, forget about location, forget about hours, forget about a lot of things, but if, just to the point you brought up, or even just the natural degradation of the things that are in that building, we have got to come up with a plan to curtail that. And so, if the council is so inclined, I would really like to see us put together a committee to get after this.
On all fronts, we're gonna look at,
I would wanna have productive conversations about location and what it means to stay there, what it means to look somewhere else. I wanna have conversation about about hours. I wanna have all the things that have come up this evening. Let's really dig into those, decide how we're gonna prioritize on those, and then move forward.
Can I add to that too? I agree with you 100%, and I think the number one priority is the preservation of the stuff that's in there. And
Agreed.
because like
Disagree.
I've been down there, I've been through with Mr. Bach, and he's talked me through everything. And back when we were talking about the having a moisture shield and all that, and it seems to get onto the council, and then it swirls a little bit, and then it goes away, and then it comes back. And so I agree. Let's do it.
I think it could be very productive because $250,000 doesn't solve the problem. $250,000 moves it onto a foundation and provides underneath, but it doesn't finish that, and it doesn't address the issues that the Historical Society has in terms of windows and heat source and climate control, and the things that if you're going to preserve artifacts need to be considered as part of it. And so $250,000 is a piece of it, but it is not the total cost. And I think that if you're going to look at what this facility needs to be viable over the long term, if that's the or whatever is going to preserve our history, that those elements also need to be considered, because it's a $250,000 Band-Aid, because it doesn't address everything that needs to be addressed in order to preserve the stuff that's in it. And I'm not being negative, I'm being, you know me, I want all the numbers, I want everything up front before and that is what I
Moisture
think
is
what
what's
needs.
ruining your artifacts.
Yes,
And without heat control, without moisture control, you're still gonna ruin your artifacts, or your artifacts, whether you put a foundation under it or not, period. You have to have some type of climate control.
And I think,
And if those figures don't have climate control in it, then you're just putting it on a foundation, that's all you do.
Would it be wise we have elections coming up in November for new council members, would it be wise, based on the fact that their hours are not changing this year, to add this committee list to the committees of services starting in January to address this thoroughly? That's 4 months away before that would start, and where there's no change in the scheduling or anything else, it would give some time to get things handled appropriately to do this process well. Is that an option, or would we like to try to move things along a
I'm
lot
fine with that.
faster this year?
And one more quick- Mr. Wall, were you the one that did the plans?
I am, yes.
it's all
First-
yours, Larry.
Larry Wall, citizen of Bucksport. First of all, I just want to say that the last time we talked about this, it was my understanding that a committee was going to be established for this reason. Obviously, it wasn't. Sue is correct in saying that it would be $250,000 would be a Band-Aid. Probably double that to get what you're talking about. and other things that I put in the plans.
Which, if it's a town investment, will require a referendum vote. Only because, whether, we're looking at upping our limit from 300,000 to 500,000 for council authority, but 500,000 won't do this project. And our charter is clear that you can't do a piece and call it at $4.99 and then do another one at $3.99, you know, that's why I say if there's gonna be a project, it's gotta be the whole budget, and then if the council decides to move forward, it would take a referendum vote of the community to support that expenditure.
What I see happening is a combination of grants, a combination of other fundraising by the Historical Society, and some monies chipped in by the town to come up with, you know, the monies required to make it a viable building.
And I think it's good to have a committee discussion about it, because the costs of the climate control and all of that would exist no matter where we decide, if we care about those artifacts like we've all said we do. So that cost would be a cost the town would be facing if that's a commitment most of us have just said. So really the only extra part would be the 200, and not that it's cheap, but the extra part would be raising it, which perhaps another location wouldn't require that, but I think that would come out in the process of discerning all of the factors, and can any of it be done in stages, things like that.
My thought on a committee is you have all of that with grants. There's grants when it comes to historical, I think Steve said it, they're out there everywhere.
This doesn't qualify for historic preservation grants because the building's been moved, is that correct?
I'm sorry,
Does this building qualify for historic preservation grants?
Not if
they
it's
have
open.
done away with the Belvedere grants, and now they have gone, and I don't know why they did, but now they have gone to, I forget what they call them, it's a different name, but the limit on it is $10,000.
A historical
Well, this is a
society
different
in-
one. He's talking about the Community Foundation grants,
Community
and what,
Foundation,
the Belvedere grant wasn't
Let me say
ended.
about museum grants, because we have done several for the Mill Museum. We did, Libra Foundation, we did, the Penobscot Estuary grant. We just, got word, we did the T-Mobile grant, hometown program grant. They give every quarter $50,000 to 25 nonprofits. And we worked, we had a committee put together the grant. Thursday we got notification we didn't get the grant, which is understandable. They only grant every quarter $50,000 grants, and they received over 500 applications. So the odds obviously were against us.
Yeah, he's talking about a
wait.
different grant than you're talking about.
Then I've looked at federal grants, and I'm thinking now about not our museum, but the Paper Mill Museum. They have what's called Inspire grants for small museums, and those are, you can request up to $25,000 without matching funds. If you want more than that, you have to match dollar for dollar.
I was talking Maine Historic Preservation funds.
But I think you're correct. If you move the building, then you don't qualify.
But has that building been moved? Is it on the National Register?
Yes, it is.
It's on the National Register.
Then Maine Historic Preservation grant funding, I just was reading about it yesterday, an entity that received $399,000 in funding to rehab a historic structure. So I don't know if it was, I'm sure it wasn't Maine Historic Preservation, but it was a grant for that purpose. So if those type grants haven't been looked at, certainly that, and then there's capital campaign, there's a whole host of things that could be discussed in committee as a collaborative way to raise money to do whatever's gonna be done, wherever it's gonna be done. right?
Cause you're also talking, if you're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, a lot of people are gonna be concerned with town ownership.
Oh, if you put $25,000 into it, there will be people who will be saying you need the deed. I've sat in this chair for 9 years, I know exactly how the discussions for money go, which is that if you're giving out substantial money, that there would need to be some sort of ownership. But again, we're committeeing in a council meeting.
Sorry,
Sorry. So
I
if we,
apologize, I apologize, Mayor, I had that question, and my opinion is if the council's gonna, if you're gonna throw a Band-Aid on it, it might as well be a big Band-Aid, you know, one that fixes the whole thing, like a big ace bandage.
But again, you know,
And make sure it's done right. There's a lot of good stuff there, and the fire stuff really would, we have a fire museum, I work in Brewer, we have a fire museum that brings people, so it's, they love seeing that fire stuff.
Larry, did your design allow for climate control and HVAC and all that? It did.
it also allowed for new restrooms to eliminate the ones that you have down there now.
Yep.
An info center. I think we need to, seems we don't have one anymore because it was with the chamber.
Needs insulation too. It's not
Installation.
insulated.
So I guess I understand what the deputy mayor said too, along the lines of timing of a committee, but I think at the very least, and I think this is what you referenced, Mr. Wall, I don't know that I'm in favor of this waiting until the new year, and I think if this could go to the town council's infrastructure committee, and we can talk through some of these points, specifically around what we're gonna prioritize in terms of items to pursue. And one thing that I left off my list, is that promotion piece, which that should be part of the conversation too, as we move forward. How can there be a better collaborative effort to promote the Historical Society? But all those things, let's talk that through and then decide from there if there needs to be its own separate committee. But what I'd really like to see focused on out of that is, let's talk about the things that we know we need to prioritize. And probably, I think Councilor Ormsby is correct, perhaps that is, right off the bat, preservation of what's in there now, both short-term and long-term, and then go from there. And I just don't know that could wait until January. I think at the latest, we should probably have that meeting in October. The only reason I'm saying October is because I can't remember what we have for committee meetings prior to our meetings in September, but we could do one even sooner as well, if that is the pleasure of both the council and the Historical Society in terms of kicking this conversation off. But I will say, I've talked individually with several members of the council, and I know that there is an interest to resolving this, that this is not a result of apathy on the part of the council, and we want to talk this through, at the very least.
we've run this through infrastructure before.
That's the issue, is it went to infrastructure before, but I'm gonna be honest, that conversation was not very productive because the location issue continues to be a sticking point. And it has to be said, and I'm not gonna force Councilor Eastman to be the only one that says it, that is a very valuable piece of real estate to be used for a very small amount of hours a year. That is one mindset. If there are ways to expand that, if there are ways to take a look at doing it differently, if there are ways, there are any number of ways, and I don't intend on further committeeing during this meeting, but let's talk about what those are. Let's prioritize those and come up with a plan, and I think, we can move past that.
I'd like to make the point that, yes, preservation of the items in there, but also preservation of the building itself. That's an 1874 railroad depot. There aren't many from that era still being used for whatever purpose in the state of Maine. And I don't want anyone to have any idea that they're going to demolish that building or turn it into something that's not even recognizable for its historical significance. those two in the same boat, the building and its contents.
Excuse me, Paul, I'd just like to make 2 points if I could.
Sure.
As valuable as that piece of property is, there's no parking. There's not enough parking for the restaurant that's there. In winter down there is mind-boggling. We store the floats, so that shrinks that parking even more. So you wanna balance that, if you don't mind my suggesting that.
Absolutely, I think that's something that we
And
talk over.
secondly, we close because the weather is so bad, because people are few and far between. There's not a reason that some of our artifacts that are so very valuable can't be stored somewhere else for the winter and taken out again when we reopen.
Great
So
conversation.
please consider that.
Sure.
Going forward.
But
So sometimes I feel like when I ask for committees, I'm impatient. So I'm, if the council and the historical society are amenable to having an infrastructure committee meeting about this, to set the tone for moving forward and align on the priorities, and thinks that enough time is before our next meeting in well, it's the second, I think it's actually 3 weeks from now, because just how the calendar lays out. Great. If you feel like a little bit more time is needed and we wanna have an infrastructure committee meeting before our second meeting in September, I don't have a preference. I'll leave that to the council and the society.
I think the sooner the better.
Okay?
Yeah, I actually agree. I think it needs to be sooner. We're gonna have bad weather starting.
Sure.
We gotta figure out what to do with the valuables. One way or another.
This is gonna be more than a 15-minute discussion.
Yep.
Do you wanna set the meeting time for 5:30 or 6?
probably 5:30 is better.
I think 5:30 is
5:30.
Yeah.
better.
And this is on the infrastructure?
Infrastructure, yeah.
And it's
when
just,
would that be, Sue?
Excuse me?
That
When
is
would that be?
Thursday the 12th.
Thursday, the 12th of September
Yep, that's our next meeting.
Okay,
at 5:30 PM.
And, yeah, then there'll be
how many,
one,
how
the
many
first of
members
many.
are- How many members are on the infrastructure committee?
There's 3 appointed members, but all councillors are
usually here.
Welcome.
able to attend and participate.
How many members would you like from the historical society?
It's open to the public, sir, anyone can come.
Anybody can come, but in terms of being on the committee, we'll let you decide. I
You
would
all are welcome.
say 3, yeah, 3 and 3, or we can figure that out. Yep.
Have me and, well, you'll be gone.
I'll be going in mid-October, so I think.
Well,
we'll
you
be
got one.
fine.
Yep.
We
Good.
send out mouthpieces anyway.
We will come up with 3
Good.
names and I'll forward them to Sue. Also, I wanted to mention, Rich isn't here tonight, is he?
No.
No. The historian that was on the cruise ship that came in and took my email, he's not on every ship that comes in. And so I wanted to ask, Rich, cause he has the contacts with the cruise ships, and to give them my email if they're interested in a tour.
Okay.
If you pass that to, or someone to give it to Rich, thank you,
Thank you, I'll make sure that he gets it.
thanks.
Anything else?
So, thank you all for your time.
Thanks, Larry.
Yep.
Thank you all. Good discussion. Thank you.
I applaud your persistence.
Yes. Yep. Next is before and after school childcare.
Okay, on Sunday, I became aware, via an active social media presence on Facebook that, there had been a change in operation at the Bucksport Area Child Care Center and that they would not be able to offer after-school care. And, I reached out to RSU 25, Dr. Tripp, our Community and Economic Development Director, the Y, the Child Care Center, I think that was it. Anyway, and we coordinated a meeting for Tuesday when we met and discussed options available, because the goal for everyone in that meeting was that people who were set up to have childcare that had lost it would have that opportunity restored in some way, that we would facilitate. And the contingent plan that emerged was that the Bucksport Y would take over operation of the after-school program at the Miles Lane School and operate it in the same way that the Bucksport Area Child Care Center operated it, but it would be for the coming year, but it would be under their auspices, their billing, their staff, their, all of that kind of stuff. And that, since that would take some time to staff, that Dr. Tripp and I would work out a way for RSU 25 to be able to provide that for the couple-week period, starting when school goes back after Labor Day for a couple weeks until they were staffed. Using existing staff that's at the school. One person that is a person we contract to the school that they were already being paid, and another that would be paid to work the additional hours for the after-school program. And that the town would collect the money for the program, and RSU would bill us for the wages of the extra one that had, which would come from the money that the town collected from the child care fees. That was that everyone had to go back and ask somebody, and so everybody did. And Matt Montgomery, the head of Down East Family Y, contacted me and told me that they were set to go, they could do this, and the Child Care Center contacted us and said that their board had met, and while, you know, things would be tight for them, they knew that they couldn't do this program right now, but it was important to them also that this continue for the families. So I couldn't be more proud of the organizations in this community who responded to what really was a crisis for all of us, because childcare is a critical need, and if you don't have childcare, people can't work. And the Child Care Center has been challenged with staffing for a long time, and so an immediate loss really took their feet out from under 'em for this particular program. And, you know, but for the grace of God, I feel like some days it could be any of us, the way the employment situation is at this point. But apart from that, I am pleased to announce that there will be information going out to the parents. It will be first offered to the parents of the children enrolled in the program at BACC that were notified that there wouldn't be a program this year. They'll be contacted with an offer to participate. If they decline or have already found additional or some other alternative, then the program can open for other students. But I believe we've solved this concern. I apologize for the few days this coming week that it's not going to be able to, but I think the fact that within a week of an occurrence that we've come up with a collaborative solution that included a variety of entities in this community, all of the idea of having childcare, but also partnering with and supporting the organizations in the community. Bucksport Area Child Care Center is still an important component for childcare in this community, even though it is not doing after-school care. Because if you don't have full-time care, you're really not working. This isn't going to grandma's for 2 hours after something. This is a completely different thing. So it's on our agenda, and when it went on the agenda, I wasn't sure what the answer was gonna be. I'm very pleased to announce that they believe that even though it wasn't our, I don't wanna say circus or our monkey, none of this is under our ownership, but we were able to be a piece of finding a solution, so that's,
Thank you, Sue.
Thanks, Sue.
oh, I was just a piece of this.
But, yeah, I was in that meeting too, and I'll say.
Takes a lot of pieces to make a puzzle.
Right.
It does. Here's what I'll say. I'll say that, I think certainly when you sit here, you look for any opportunity to speak well of the people that are executing on things, and I don't think anybody will be surprised that the town manager certainly stepped up and didn't try to solve the problem herself and then bring it to us to write a big fat check for. That would have been irresponsible and not the way to do this. She did the right thing, and she got the right people in the room, the experts, to have a collaborative conversation, and that's certainly what happened. And when you talk about the people, those experts that were in the room, first of all, from the why, it was just, you know, it was such, that continues to be such a good collaboration, and a good decision made years ago to begin working with the why. And the meeting the other day, and I'm confident as we move forward with that will just demonstrate that further. The group from Bucksport Area Child Care recognized their issue, recognized the impact to their bottom line. Their board chair is here this evening, so I don't mean to talk about her or them like they're not in the room, but and really came to us with an open mind, and I feel we're very transparent. And I walked out of that room. I didn't walk in doubting that anybody was committed to coming up with a solution, but I was really impressed. And I will second what the town manager just said, that I think that they remain a valuable partner in childcare here in town. And I think this really gives them an opportunity to assess what they're gonna do over the next 365 days. And then the RSU, I mean, the superintendent was in that meeting and really was open to collaboration as well and was productive. So I would be remiss, I feel, to sit here and not, because I walked out of the meeting and said that today was a Bucksport thing. This is how it happens. So, anyway, I was impressed, so. Wow, I didn't think that was gonna happen, but no, I did. I walked out of that meeting and said, this.
We got a
it
lot of
happens.
phone calls on that.
We did.
I got 3 or 4 on that from different people wanting to know what we were gonna do about it. And I don't know how many we all got from that, but
I certainly, from running a childcare facility for 20 years, it's not easy to make those numbers work, and I just appreciate the stress that probably brought to the board and staff, and then to lose staff, and I think it's great that there was a solution, that everybody ended up okay.
Absolutely. Yes,
I would like to speak on
please,
that.
please come right up if you wouldn't mind.
My name is Luann Bridges, and I worked with Rich Rotella a few months ago. I was approached because I've been doing childcare for 40 years. I was approached by the state of Maine with a $130,000 grant if I could find a facility to open a childcare center and run it myself. And I decided to do infant care because we have none in Bucksport, and it's a huge, huge need. Even Rich talked about his struggles with finding infant care. So we worked tirelessly for 2 months trying to find a building or a facility or a house, anything, and we did find places, but we had no funding to, get the places. The grant was only for buildings that you already, like, it would be for if I had a house to add onto and turn a part of my house into a childcare facility. So, one of the other things we talked about was Bangor Area Child Care Center, and there's a piece of land to the side of that where that might be a good spot for an infant care facility, but it sounds like the only way to maybe accomplish that would be to work through the YMCA.
The Y is not, the Y has agreed to operate this program for a year while the whole thing is evaluated as to what happens with the childcare center next. But the Y has made it clear that it's making no commitment to put infrastructure. They're not gonna build something.
Okay. Right,
Yeah.
we even looked for buildings that were like sitting, that might be donated to be moved there. That was kind of another avenue Rich and I looked at a few months ago. The grant for me ran out in June, but it is coming back up again in October. So, if there's any way that this council can do or has any ideas to make that happen, would also be beneficial to Bucksport. There are a lot of new babies being born and a lot of younger people who can't work because they have no child care here for infants.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the Bucksport area childcare,
not.
we're already in violation from years ago regarding this.
Oh, you mean the grants for the sports fields?
Oh, we just fixed it.
I think we fixed it when we bought the other
We
one.
can't build
We can't break
anything.
it, no. We just bought 24 acres out behind there to atone for having gotten rid of recreational land. We
Yeah,
weren't
no, she
supposed to
said
have
this
done.
was it's right on the corner, like, it's just past,
That
right
might-
on that corner
That's part
that's
of it.
like
Is it out of it?
swampland, I
I
think.
don't think so.
I think
I-
it's part of it.
The difference is the school, the childcare center, the town are all nonprofit organizations. And you're talking about locating a for-profit business. And I'm not
Actually-
suggesting it's not good. I'm just saying that it's why Rich couldn't accommodate a request for you to operate an after-school program at Miles Lane because the school can't have for-profit entities operating on school property, and
Okay.
any more than we can.
This wasn't actually for profit all the way. I would have to be willing to take subsidized.
But that, willing to take subsidies doesn't make you a nonprofit. A nonprofit is the state of your business plan, 501c3,
Right,
not,
yes.
and that's, Rich and I discussed this. I'm sorry,
No,
this
that's
is
okay.
not appropriate in terms of me discussing your business in front of the council. I'm just,
Oh, that's okay.
this
I
was
didn't know this
discussed,
part.
Rich and I had discussed what the possibilities were with the after-school, and virtually the only thing, there were two options. One was the town to try and become a childcare provider, no. And the second was for the Y to step up. Those were our options here. And as far as finding a location for a private business, that we can't do that on public land. We're,
So it doesn't all line up, you're saying, as far as what I'm trying to do and what you have to offer.
Correct.
in terms of property, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So I would have to work with the state then.
You'd have to what?
I'd have to get more involved with the state as far as that, them helping.
This is gonna sound even worse. What you would have to do is have the resources to purchase private property to operate your business from.
Okay, well, part of their grant is that I am doing something for the underprivileged people, so it isn't completely all mine, like it's.
Yeah,
Do you know what
we
I mean?
applied for that grant, and so for-profit businesses were eligible for that particular grant, only if they had an existing building that they were expanding.
Right.
It was to expand childcare opportunities in Maine writ large. But because you're serving any for-profit business applying for that particular grant would be restricted under the covenant of that grant to provide a certain amount of slots for kids who are low income.
Yes.
But that would still not change your for-profit status, your business owner status.
Even if
nonprofit
you're
is,
barely paying your bills.
yeah, that's just the technicality of the program that you're talking about. It came through the state of Maine.
Gotcha. Okay, I was just concerned with saving the child care center actually and seeing if that kind of grant would help that at all.
If the child care center was the one applying, probably, if that's what their intention was in their strategic plan, if they were a nonprofit intending to do that, probably.
Thank you.
Emily, I do not mean to put you on the spot. If there's anything you'd like to say, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, I'm happy
Okay.
to. Hi, I'm Emily. I'm the chair of the board at BACCC. And was in the meeting earlier this week with the town manager and the mayor. And I just want to say on behalf of the board and also as a parent in Bucksport, thank you for helping the parents and the community come together. I left feeling the same way you did, that this is why we're here. Like, as humans, this is why we're in Bucksport. This is why it feels good to be here. We're very open to anybody who wants to help or anybody who's interested in, sort of talking about childcare in Bucksport. The board is made up almost entirely of current parents or folks who have had kids at the center. So the impact of what this work means is not lost on any of us. And we have an amazing director right now and a pretty robust board, even small but mighty. And so we're really committed to this. And it's been a really hard week, but for folks who have stepped up and for the families that we have impacted, we just want everybody to know that we're really grateful and we're working really hard. And we're thrilled that there is a solution and we're going to make it work. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sue and Mayor, for doing
Oh,
that.
Sue. Yeah. Well done. Any other questions or comments? Last but certainly not least, we have a report from the library.
Oh, I feel like, after all this, wow, little old me, We've been busy. We have been incredibly busy. I am really thrilled to report that we now have 1,881 registered patrons. It changed again tonight, which is an increase of 263 patrons since January, and it shows. We're just busy.
That's more than one a day.
More than one a
Keeping
day.
home.
That's right. More than one a day. Lots of families, lots of people joining. And to give you a sense, and I'm going to skip around a little bit, this week, in 3 days, 320 items were checked out, 250 items were returned, and 80 items were renewed. Every Wednesday, story time between 10 and 10:30, stacks of books come in, stacks of books go out. I have children proudly telling me that they're starting first grade. And we're really happy. We're happy with the growth. We're a little scared because this year has been financially challenging. Our fundraising efforts in February fell short of where we wanted to be, and the cost of books just keeps going up. And as you all know, any of you who have children who are into series, you gotta have them all. I currently have 6 people waiting to read the new Paul Doran book. Heaven help me when I only can afford one copy of Louise Penny's book in October. So I have written 4 grants, totaling $40,000, and boy, I hope I get at least one of them. One of them was a King grant, and one of them was a Main Street Foundation grant, or Main Street grant. I'm not sure if they call it Main Street Foundation in this case, but this one would be supporting youth. One was a Davis Family Foundation grant. That one is one that I am working with
Paula Key and Vanessa Newman. We are hoping to create a writing program for all ages to tell your story, resulting in a publication. This would be something that we would be working with the schools, we would be working with the senior center, we'd be working with home, and just basically hearing from our community with no political agenda, no anything, just tell your story, you know. We have a lot of new people in town. We have a lot of people who have all the history of this town, and it would be really nice to kind of capture those voices. So I'm hopeful to get that grant. Interlibrary loans, something that, boy, even if you were not a library user, you heard a lot about it this summer, is resuming the first week of September. I think every librarian, including the state librarian especially, it's been a journey. It is very clear that contracts on a big level can be very complex, and they can sit in offices for a while, and then when you get the state attorney general involved, it takes even longer. So yeah, we've had to turn a lot of people away, but I think Bangor has had some new members because I've sent people there. I will be attending the Association for Rural and Small Libraries National Conference, which will be in Springfield in the fall, in September. I received a full grant to attend this. It should be a very good conversation around funding and what small and rural libraries are facing right now. We're all struggling. We're all struggling financially, and we're all struggling with, you know, people needing more than what we can do. I met with two people actually in the last 2 days around digital equity. The Orland Broadband Committee members are trying to expand their teaching in classroom here, and the National Digital Equity Center has agreed that we can be kind of a classroom and a source for that. We have learned a lot. I personally have had many times where I have patrons coming in who, you know, they can't do their Medicare forms because they're not computer literate, and it's very difficult. I mean, there's a certain sector of this population that really is not digital, and our world is becoming very digital, and there are not enough resources to help people through that, and libraries traditionally are one of the places. But you know, if I have 2 or 3 people come in like that in a week, that's many hours out of my day. So we're trying to find ways that we can work more collaboratively with existing organizations and see if we can fill some gaps. So anyway, that's what I've got. Any questions?
No, I see how busy you are. We're right across the street.
Yes.
Parking becomes an issue for us when you're really busy. It's quite funny.
Parking has been an issue all summer. Charlie's got to move up to Doug's, and Doug sends his regrets. Doug is unfortunately hit with the same bugs that everybody else has had. So
I do have a question.
yes.
Do you take book donations?
Ooh.
When I say that, you just talked about books that you hope to be able to buy because my wife's a reading teacher. She loves buying books for her classroom and different things like that, and I was just
So
asking.
it's complex in the sense that
Or do you have a list that they could send them to you?
right.
Like from
so
Does that make sense?
currently I am developing a list of lost items that Andy has agreed that I'm just going to put up a sign at Bookstacks, and people can purchase those books for me. if anybody has a spare copy of Paul Doran's latest book, I'll take it.
What's the name? What's the book called?
Pitch Dark.
Pitch dark.
Pitch Dark. It's his
You're gonna
latest
get
book.
50 copies
Yes,
next
yes,
week,
multiple
probably.
copies.
Everyone
yes.
watching will send
Yes.
you
The
the book.
So it's complex in the sense that we are a small library, and so when people want to donate, the conversation that I always have is that we will accept materials that are appropriate to the collection and that we can use, but if there are duplicates or if there are things that just don't fit on our shelves, we have what we call our free bookshelf right outside our doors, and those books go out. You know, it's kind of a larger version of the tiny free library that's down on the waterfront. So
I guess so. Like if a person walked in your doors, you're open tomorrow.
yes,
Walked in tomorrow and asked you what book you had that you needed, and they just ordered it with you.
we have done that. We have done that in the past. What I also want to
Because then you
I
would know you
I
had
know
room
that-
for it, right?
Right, exactly. So basically, from the collection management standpoint, I have books already in baskets for next March.
Just getting ready to hit
Just
send.
just for
March.
next March, because
Okay.
we all know many months in advance when those books are going to come out. Jodi Picoult's book just came out yesterday, and that is another one that people are, you know, looking for. And I have a copy, and it will be available tomorrow. But the other way to look at this is more like I can I have in the past put up lists of books,
Okay.
and people have purchased them. It's more complex than just saying, you know, Lisa, what books do you need? And also the other piece in this is that as a librarian and as an entity, as a nonprofit entity, and through the state, we get significant discounts on our books. I get 42% off hardcovers.
Sure.
So what I typically do is publish lists that I supply to Andy so that we can keep Andy in business. And Andy turns around and gives anybody who buys books that way the same discount he gives me, which is 20% off or 25% off. So,
Okay.
so that's kind of how I've been doing it. But I'm happy to think about that. I think I'm happy to think about that, and probably where I would most likely do that would be on kids' books. Because kids' books are not kids, unless it's, you know, the latest Captain Underpants, they're not gonna come in and say, Lisa, do you have this book?
Right.
Quite as much as most adults do.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Or you can just donate.
Wow,
Yeah.
after she went through that, I'm like, yeah, I just don't.
Dollars
Right,
help
I mean,
a lot. We really like dollars.
Just wanted to
Yes,
buy
the
a book.
Thank you.
That was the book I was looking for. She mentioned that book. I was like, ah, maybe I'll just buy the book, have it sent. Right?
Do appreciate the regular updates and stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Next, we have one agenda item. It is Resolve 2025-07 to approve contract with DM&J Waste. And that was included in your packets.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. I am not aware of any resignations, appointments, assignments, or elections. Nor am I aware of the need to approve any quit claims, discharges, and deeds. So the town manager report.
This is the shortest report I've written
I
for
saw
you in
that.
my
It's like a
whole life,
services
and
committee meeting.
it's not that I'm not doing anything, it's just that I
Was it
have no time to write it all down.
Yeah.
So don't ask if it's been a light week, because you might get hit.
Yeah, pretty close.
All right.
A reminder, however, that August 31st is the final day to pay first half of 24-25 property taxes to avoid interest. Since the office is not open on the 30th or the 31st, payments may be left in the outside payments box or mailed, and a postal date is used for the payment date when received. So if we get it on the 3rd and the date is the 31st or before, we treat it as no interest. Required national incident management training was held for our elected officials and appointed officials prior to this meeting. And the Doggy Paddle fundraiser will be held at the Tim Emery Municipal Pool on Saturday, August 24th from 10 to 2. The last day of regular pool use is Friday, August 23rd.
That would be tomorrow.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
I don't know what today is.
That's okay.
Oh, and
It's Thursday.
I haven't reported on, the landfill wasn't on there. There have not been any more municipal visits to me or lawyer visits to me with towns. September 1 is the date when certain cover is supposed to have been done at that facility. And I spoke to the DEP representative who indicated that she would be on site on September 3rd to see if it had been, and if it hadn't been, that a notice of violation would be issued. So that's where the landfill sits.
Very
at
nice.
the moment.
Very good, thank you.
I'm gonna jump onto that quickly, cause that was something I had in here, is, were the perk plants reopened, but they're not, they're just sending it to Juniper Ridge.
All it is a pipeline to Juniper Ridge for prior customers of PERC, and not all of them. Yeah, there's no processing of waste.
I just think we should, cause this is now we're even more filling up Juniper Ridge even quicker.
No, the waste that's going to PERC to Juniper Ridge was already going to Juniper Ridge. It's just moved there, instead of a direct to Juniper Ridge, it's now going to PERC, and then PERC is gonna take it to, well, it's not PERC anymore, whatever its name is taking it.
Now it takes a
there.
nap before it goes to Juniper Ridge.
Gets
I just,
stinkier.
whenever I hear anything about Juniper Ridge and the facilities not doing what they should, I just really think we gotta keep our guard up, cause this is like giving the state ammo to say for the greater good.
Oh, no, the target on the back right now of an entity is Juniper Ridge, which is, there's an application before the state for an 11 million cubic yard expansion. And the state was supposed to have, by August 23rd, have determined if there was a public, that the public benefit determination was that it was positive, but that's extended another month. Anyways, which is another thing, but the closure plan is still due in November, and this landfill is not in any way, shape, or form constructed to be a municipal solid waste landfill, and what it would need to do to be transformed into that it's not even permitted for that kind of a, so.
It always
And
just
it,
triggers
and,
a flag.
and at the bottom line is there's not enough space in it to make it viable. Juniper Ridge, that area has huge amounts of land available that was part of it, that I'm not saying it's right, but that's why they are connecting it in that one, and haven't built the one that's already permitted. There's another state landfill permitted too that's constructed. Okay, I was gonna be short, but I wasn't.
Sorry, I just elevated your blood
But
pressure.
you asked the question this time, Counselor.
Thank you, Eddie.
Any other questions for the town manager? All right. Under set public hearings or hold public hearings and approval of any licenses or permits. On the agenda we all have in front of us, there are 2 items. On the agenda that was published, there is only one, so I would like for the council to consider the addition of a second item to review the liquor license for Bucksport House of Pizza.
Motion to take up an item not on the agenda for Bucksport House of Pizza.
Second.
Second, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, so the first item will be the review of the liquor license for Verona Wine.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Questions? All in favor? Opposed? And the second is the aforementioned liquor license for Bucksport House of Pizza.
Motion to approve.
Second.
In favor? Opposed? Thank you. Oh, there they go. All right. Discussion of items not on the agenda for council and public. Anyone from the public this evening? Anyone from the council this evening?
Two little things. Saw pictures of the fire department kitchen online. That looks great. I'm gonna try to get down there and check it out myself, but looks like it came out really well. A lot of hard work there. And a stupid thing, but I keep forgetting it, is the heading on our agendas needs to be corrected.
Oh, yeah.
It says, doesn't say meeting.
And it will now.
It will now. It's correct on Facebook.
No, it isn't.
So,
It is now. I corrected it
Oh, oh,
yesterday
oh.
after I posted it. That's how I did. I went in and edited it.
Anyone else?
It's the trouble when you use the same format every single time.
I have one question, and that's for Sue. Well, two-part. One, thank you again very much. Thank you again for being in the meeting. And thank you very much for your meeting. That was great resolution, very quick and swift. I do have one question on the fourth grade part. Are they gonna be, is that gonna start back up for them also?
The
Where's the Y doing it this year?
The Y has numbers for both what included the fourth grade and what didn't include the fourth grade. And I believe they're asking for all of that information from the child care center in order to determine how that goes. But that,
Cause I think the fourth graders, there was only 4 kids, correct me if I'm wrong, but
9.
there was 9 fourth graders? Okay.
Well, I think there were 9 kids impacted by that change.
But yeah, our intention is to present the full program.
Which includes the fourth grade. Oh, perfect, thank you very much. Thank you. That was just a question I got on my little.
When the discussion
mini-meeting.
happened, it involved how many children in what was the earlier grade level, 4, or what it was it after that adjustment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Anyone else? Upcoming public hearings, designation of topics for committee assignment and scheduling of committee meetings. We have the aforementioned from earlier in the meeting, infrastructure meeting at 5:30 on September the 12th regarding the Historical Society. Do we need any other committee meetings?
If necessary, would the council be amenable to a special council meeting to be held next Tuesday or Wednesday, 6 o'clock, if necessary?
Either Tuesday or Wednesday?
Yep.
At 6? Yes.
Yeah, I
I'm
can
fine
do
with
that.
that. Yep.
Is it the
I'll be out
17th?
of court by then.
What's that?
Yes.
27th.
Want a meeting or if necessary?
Yes, I want a meeting.
Oh,
The,
First it was necessary.
so it is necessary.
okay, the 27th or the 28th?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do either, whatever you want.
I prefer the 27th.
Yeah,
The
if,
later the better.
27th?
27th is easier, cause I've got Healthy Communities
What night is
Committee
it?
that,
6
on the next
I'll
day.
have further information
Should
about,
be.
this is kind of a evolving thing, and I need a meeting to
Yeah, I'm good.
put it on.
Unnecessary meeting.
So
I'm not-
Tuesday the 27th at 6.
6 p.m.
Tuesday, 27th.
Do we get candy?
I was thinking dinner.
Oh,
I mean,
boy.
6 o'clock's dinner.
You can buy whatever you want.
I did tonight. A couple piece of pizza. I knew there was a reason I didn't like it.
Okay.
Any other committee meetings that we need?
With that infrastructure, we should make sure Rich is there. He should be present for that.
So Tuesday, 27th, 6 o'clock, just to
Yeah.
verify.
Good catch, you're right.
Special mandatory meeting.
For Sue.
With dinner.
If needed.
Sue, with dinner. She's, yeah, with dinner.
Candy,
Oh, candy.
you gotta run.
Oh, candy.
There's nothing like the adage that the difference between minute number 89 and minute number 91 is vast. And we are fast approaching minute number 89. The next item on our agenda is an executive session pursuant to Title 1, section 4056A for a personnel issue. We will not be taking any action out of that. The only action that will be taken after that is to adjourn. So,
Motion for executive session?
Second.
all those in favor? Opposed? So preemptively, I will say goodnight to everyone. Thank you.
I guess I missed that.
Thank you for your patience.